How do we start?
Welcome to the party.
Welcome to the party, pal.
You are my sunshine.
Open and close every show.
Check.
Only sunshine.
All right, so I'll start out. Okay, welcome to the first episode of Be Kind ReWatch. Pronounced that correctly this time. So this is the show where I give a group of friends from various backgrounds and ages and everything and experiences to where I force them to watch movies that I grew up loving, and we look for a good one.
Do you want us to jump in at you while you're talking?
Yeah, we could talk. This is.
All right, so the first one tonight was Warlock.
Bring together my people.
The Grand Grimoire. Here. Now.
Can I take that for you?
Over my rotting corpse.
Let's just discuss why we picked Warlock. Well,
we didn't pick Warlock
okay.
first. of all.
Yes, why I picked Warlock. The unfortunate news had come out recently that Julian Sands had disappeared on a hike in LA, which is very sad. And this was one of the movies that I watched as a kid that really got me into horror movies. And Julian Sands is the Warlock, which is, an important thing. So I picked this one to see how it stood up, and as a tribute to Julian Sands as well.
Warlock! No! He went missing?
Julian Sands.
No! I never knew his name. I love that guy.
So since I think the person who enjoyed it the most was Antonio, I will let you sum it up. What happened in the movie Warlock?
Okay, so Warlock takes place, what was it, 1691.
1691. Interestingly, released in 1991.
300 years later. So it starts out in 1691.
But actually, when he goes in the future, it's
1988.
88, so that was actually less than 300 years.
I thought somebody said it was 91 in the film. In one of the scenes, they said it was 91.
When he looks at the newspaper, it's
It said
1988.
1988, but then someone said with their mouth 91.
Do you know what scene?
When they were driving in the car.
Was it their mouth, or was it an overdub, like,
No, she was talking to him.
91?
She was talking, like, it might have been a pickup shop, but they were driving down the road, and she was driving, and like, with their lipstick, not looking at the road.
Almost hitting the lady and getting mad that she was in the crosswalk.
No, they were in the car together.
1691?
Aye.
Like almost 300 years ago?
As queer it seems to you, 'tis even more so to me.
Oh, okay.
They were in the car together. So this was after the road rage.
So do we think 2 years had passed in just a couple days?
No, I think it was amazing editing.
No, you said reshoots. They probably did some test shots or test releases, and it didn't test well. So they're like, we need to add more comedy of her driving old people off the road.
But editing was a different monster back then, right? They called it the cutting room floor because you
they had to
actually had to cut the film, right?
Yeah, they had to line it up and cut it and put it together.
Continuity, when it comes to something like that, is so minimal compared to just trying to get the movie completed.
Yeah.
So like continuity of like, oh no, the dates are wrong. Just move forward.
Right.
The movie, if they even noticed. Because if it was 2 years later, it's just the director. He's drinking 20 cups of coffee a day, just trying to get this done, as well as the other projects he's already working on.
And then the 300 years that they announced in the beginning of the film wouldn't work unless it was actually 300 years later.
Right.
Which makes perfect sense. But so what we'll do is we'll say that the beginning of the movie started in 1688.
Excellent.
And the ending of the movie
Actually,
started in 1691.
It started in 1688, but he was held captive until 1691.
Okay.
When the time NATO occurred.
Yes, the time NATO occurred,
The time
yes.
NATO. And they had him strapped up and chained up, and they were getting ready to kill the Warlock. And this time NATO happened and sucked him and who's the other character's name?
Renfield?
Redfield.
They sucked the Warlock and Redfield up and brought him into modern times.
Definitely has nothing to do with global warming and is entirely the disappearance of the Warlock.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love the most was the fact that this character flies through the window of somebody's home, completely shatters glass, comes in, and all they want to do is just like help him and cater to him.
Dang it, not again.
Like,
It is LA.
Yeah, I'll stick him on the porch.
A little compassion wouldn't hurt Cassandra.
Yeah, or some smarts, Chaz. You know, you just can't take in every stray that you meet.
I took you in, didn't I?
but it was kind of cool because the tornado, they were referencing the tornado in California, and not until a couple of months ago did we actually have a tornado
in California.
Right, so we have a Warlock somewhere running around California right now. Right around the time Julian Sands disappeared. He went back.
Holy shit!
Do you think they're like, man, last week they threw bricks through the window, now they're throwing people?
People.
Oh no, a poor crackhead flew through our window.
So it was Redfin trying to recapture the Warlock.
I like that.
Redfin?
Yeah, no.
Redfield.
Redfield.
I keep saying Redford because I think Robert Redford.
I gotta look
Call him
at this.
Braveheart.
His name is just
Braveheart.
We should just change his name.
Braveheart.
We say it.
Braveheart.
Braveheart, yeah.
Braveheart.
Because he's wearing the furs, he's got
Right.
the big hair.
Scotland, he's Scottish, he's got that accent.
Yeah.
So Braveheart tries to capture the Warlock, and they have this whole adventure of this cat and mouse game through L.A. and Colorado as well. They end up in Colorado.
And the final scene in
Boston.
Boston, yeah.
In a soundstage in L.A. with
soundstage in
a
LA.
really awesome Boston
Right.
backdrop.
So what I loved about it is I love Julian Sands. I think he was just a phenomenal actor. In our time growing up, because I grew up with this movie, it was a great movie. It was a lot of fun to watch when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed it. And even as an adult, it brought back memories of, watching it as a kid, not even being allowed to see it because it's rated R, right? It's rated
Yeah.
R. So not even being allowed to see it and then actually watching it. And
That was the thing in the 80s, right? We were like, kids just somehow got into every rated R film.
Right. Didn't matter, right.
Didn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my little brother's favorite movie at 7 years old was Predator. I mean, like the idea of like it's rated R, you can't watch it. That just didn't really like.
It didn't fly.
Yeah, no one really cared.
Yeah.
But then again, also too, I mean, think about it. PG-13 didn't come along until like
No.
quite some time.
Yeah. Much later.
What I always point out was when I worked at the video store, people would always come in and wanting to rent a scary movie for their kids. Like, can we get a scary movie? But not too much. It's like, nothing rated R because
Right.
they're young. I'm like, oh yeah, Poltergeist.
Right.
Because Poltergeist is PG. Because PG-13 didn't exist then.
Right.
And it wasn't quite an R.
There
but
weren't
it was
any
close.
But it was
swear
terrifying.
words in it, and no nudity, and no
Very little
direct
blood.
sexiness.
No, and the Larry Little
Yeah.
Blood of the hallucination of him ripping his face off.
Right.
That
was it.
was the scariest movie. This film did not creep me out. It just got me excited when I was a little one.
Yeah?
I just got excited about the spooky stuff. It's one of the movies that made Halloween awesome.
Right.
Right. I mean, really, this movie, Warlock, the only thing that is really like I think that made it R was the off-camera death and description of the kid.
A boy over at trailer park was killed by one. They do that sometimes. Kyle will come down and drag off a small child. Boy is fairly well chewed up from what's being said, skin taken clean off.
I think what made it R was the homosexual content in it, which was distasteful at that period of time. Because you remember her roommate at the very beginning was gay.
That's right.
And he was openly gay. Like he wasn't even a little bit closeted.
Right.
And that would have been very uncomfortable for major moviegoers.
Especially the comment that they made with what was it, behind the...
Yeah. He
was
doesn't.
it?
He doesn't
Something
go
about
after
little
little
boys.
like he's not
Yeah.
dicking little boys in a bathroom.
In the bathroom, yeah. That dicking little boys in the bathroom.
No, digging little boys behind a wall, wasn't it?
I think it
No.
was through the bathroom walls.
Through the bathroom walls,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's a rated R comment.
Absolutely.
In any age.
And that wouldn't survive
But
today.
even that, like-
Yeah, no, it wouldn't age
survive
well.
today.
But I would think, like, if they were like, "Oh, we're gonna make this movie," and that one comment was like, "Oh, that's your R comment," they'd be like, "All right, we'll cut it."
Well, he also bit the guy's tongue out of his mouth,
And he
then
also
spit it on
cut the
ground.
guy's finger off. And you
Cut the
saw
guy's finger
the-
off.
Yeah, but there was almost no blood on
Yeah.
it. It was like
Blood.
the whole white
White
T-shirt. And he's
shirt.
like, "Oh," the whole white T-shirt going, "Oh," and his white T-shirt's perfectly white.
Right.
Sure, but then he has, gouged out eyeballs in the palm of his hand for over half the movie.
Right.
Looked vaguely frog.
I'm wondering if there was a rougher cut because, like, when he goes to cut her eyes out, they kind of cut away. A lot of the scenes they kind of.
They dodged.
Warlock 2,
Yeah.
They
Up to the
dodged, yeah.
Stakes. Did you ever watch it?
I don't
second.
remember.
Yeah, he flays the skin off of somebody to make a map to get to
Ramsay
stuff, and then he's got to kill somebody and wipe their blood on the map to freshen it up.
Wow.
And the map updates as he goes.
Wow.
Yeah, same Warlock.
Right.
Oh, so Julian Sands was.
Julian Sands,
He
yeah.
wasn't a third one. I guess he just did the first two, right? Because I know they made.
They made
They
three.
make a third one?
Yeah, they did
Yeah.
a third one. and
Oh, if he wasn't in the third one, I'd
think
be
that's what-
sad.
I think that's what happened. But
Well, then you should be sad.
Julian Sands was
Well,
great,
what-
but
Well, I was just going to say, what did you think about it? I mean, you had never seen this movie.
Never
This
heard
is
of
not even in your genre, in your generation. Anything about this movie you would have never come across.
I like the concept of it. I was saying earlier the only thing I knew about it was the synopsis. It kind of feels like an Outlander fused with the TV show Lucifer, fused with I forgot the third example, but but a bunch of shows that kind of have the same concept of jumping through time and just kind of like a devil running free in Los Angeles.
Right. That's pretty much every
Son of the
day.
Devil Running. Yeah, so I guess all those modern shows are dissections of a warlock.
Yeah,
Yes.
perhaps. Just
Well,
slightly different.
because the people that are making those shows now are the people that
I mean,
are a part of our
Lucifer was
generation.
a
Yeah.
brainchild of Gaiman, and
Right.
so.
Yeah.
But, as for the title of horror, I think horror has quite changed in the past years.
Right.
And yeah, I watched Poltergeist a few years ago, and a couple like The Shining and stuff, and none of that has ever actually been scary to me.
How does it fillet with Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I haven't seen one. The only scary movies that I actually have avidly watched is mostly Conjuring.
Conjuring.
In comparison to Conjuring,
Right.
this is
It's creepy. Well, and it's also a different kind of
Yeah,
horror,
I
right?
like the
things like The
psychological.
Conjuring are much
Right.
scarier to me than because I know people who
The
were
paranormal.
very scared by Warlock because it's physical come at you horror.
Right.
There's people who are really scared by torture porn, but that's spiritual, like the Saw movies. I just
Okay.
call them torture porn.
Okay.
But
No, yeah. So torture, it's actually a term. Torture porn is it started out with the Hostel movies, was what really popularized the torture
Right.
porn, and then Saw. The first Saw was neater, but then it really
the first
got,
Saw was great.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved the first Saw. After that, it was just about suffering, and I don't like watching people suffer.
Right.
Too much empathy for that.
Right.
But this movie was scary to a lot of my friends when I was younger. I just thought it was cool.
Right.
I was thinking to myself, I would be the warlock. I want to drink kids fat and fly. That'd
Right.
be cool.
The flying
I got
is
so
excellent.
much fat.
at least a lot of the visual effects were used very sparingly.
Yeah, I like
Right.
that. The visual effects in this one were significantly better, in my opinion, than Starfighter.
Yeah, the last Starfighter,
Because
yeah.
with the last Starfighter, it was all that budding CGI, and it looks cartoonish,
Right.
or straight from a really badly funded video game.
Right.
But with this, it was. You said that most of it looked drawn in, and it was sparingly used, as you said, and so.
Shoot, what was his name again? The warlock. That actor
Julian Sands.
at this point in his career was already a veteran horror film actor. So he had like just finger movement down and like witchy moves down, and he'd pace himself real slowly so that the people in post could do whatever. And by this era, computer generated imaging was starting to become a real thing, and so, but there were true masters of rotoscoping and just painting straight onto the film, and so the absolute most masterful expressions of that art form were around this period of time because CGI was starting to take over, along with really great practice.
But I wouldn't put too much in this because I'm sure this is a fairly low budget. Like this was pretty rushed, so it was one of those ones like, oh, we'll just send it off to some Korean animators and let them do it. Because that's a lot of what they did.
Maybe, but like those Korean animators, the flame shooting out of his hand, they shot that out of the park, man.
That's what they.
I like that actually.
The most surprising thing about rewatching this movie is the first time in at least a couple decades was how little Julian Sands was actually in it.
And he's so memorable for it.
This was his role, this was his movie and all that, but I mean, there was very little of him, which was...
What little of them that there was powerful.
Right.
Like, he portrayed it beautifully, so...
Right, which I actually think it actually worked towards his advantage because when he is on...
You're wanting more.
He's commanding, he's there, so it's more impactful because it was, used sparingly.
Please tell him, Stuart.
Tell me, Stuart. Lest your children be born slugs of cold flesh. Tell me now.
His unique manner of speech, where he moves his bottom lip instead of his top lip when he's talking, and it's not weird or gross like it is when I do it.
Fun fact: every picture I send is a dick pic.
But
well, he doesn't do it like this. Like, use my bottom lip. Yeah.
This is my acting.
But it's so counter to the way everybody else speaks. If you get a whole lot of it, you get accustomed to it, and it becomes quite charming.
I love the fire effects in Warlock. I think they were, I know CGI was just starting back then, and working with fire, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching, like you said, his hand movements, the fire effects coming out, afterwards. And even to this day, when we sat and watched it, I enjoyed every minute of it. Like just remembering it and sitting in it and being lost in that whole sequence of the parallel universe and everything that was happening. It was just fun and quirky, and being 15 and watching it as opposed to being not 15 and watching it. It was just super fun.
Like the suspense of the little kid in his room where the clown disappears and he's looking under his bed looking for the clown, and then it's there, and then the tree coming and breaking through, like all that anticipation
from Poltergeist
is what to me is scary. And this is kind of like an introduction. There's some suspenseful scenes in it. There's some good comedy in it. It's just a good introduction. It's not, it's not Saw. It's not Conjuring. It's just like, hey, here's what horror kind of is.
It's funny because my first introduction to horror, because I was always interested in like the macabre, even as a child. My dad took me to see The Hills Have Eyes when it first came out in like 1977, 78, something like that. That was like one of the first movies that I ever got to see in the theater. And I was like, oh, I want to see it. And my dad was like, okay, let's go. Like, and you're not sure if you're going to like scare the shit out of the child where he's like, I don't want to ever see this again.
So how did you do?
I did great. I've been watching horror movies. Friday the 13th is one of my favorite movies of all time. It just, that was my go-to. And, anybody.
So seeing it that young, it was a bad idea.
I mean, now look at the house, right?
I actually walked out of the remake of The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't take it because again, I don't like watching people suffer.
Right.
And that's all the new one was about.
Right. Was suffering. Yeah.
Was suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hardcore.
Because movies, like anything, they go through waves. In the late 70s, you had the revenge murder films. You had like The Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave. You had those movies.
Oh, I Spit on Your Grave.
It goes through that. The 90s, late 80s, early 90s. It's the crossover horror comedy because the success of the later Freddy movies.
Right.
So they even like this had some comedy in it. Like that was a big part of the '80s was the horror comedies.
Right.
And then in the '90s we get into the torture porn of Saw and all those, and then even like the Final Destination movies of just how shocking can we be on everybody's death. So everything goes through cycles, and maybe we'll come back to some of these interesting, more creative horror movies, and not just the shock and awe kind of stuff, but more just kind of interesting.
Well, it was also a very creative horror
I think
movie.
he's got something though.
Oh, go.
I got something.
Go.
You just jogged my memory when you said cycles. It reminded me of a film title, which just jogged my memory. The first time I saw Julian Sands in a movie.
Go.
He was as a villain in a film with Goldblum
Jeff Goldblum.
and Cyndi Lauper.
Ooh,
Psych.
Oh,
Where they were both psychics, like both different kinds of like flim-flam psychics, just trying to
that
make money,
sounds
but they were
familiar.
actually real psychics, and they would occasionally make money as consultants or whatever. And there was some kind of ancient like Mesoamerican artifact that was the tip of God's arrow fallen to earth, and Sam's trying to uncover it because he's also a psychic, and he just like wants this ultimate power, but he knows he can't find it on his own, so he tries to recruit them and then ends up recruiting them by force to go get it. But it was a really good movie, and Cyndi Lauper's so hot.
She's still pretty hot.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't say was. I said Cyndi Lauper's so hot. It has never changed.
That's funny. That's funny. I think I remember that movie.
Can anybody else remember their first Julian Sands movie?
it was definitely Warlock for me.
Yeah.
That's got to be a hard time to remember. Like,
it's been so long.
yeah. Is there anything in the movie that, like a scene that like really stood out?
For me, what stood out as silly, and I just thought it was hilarious, because I always thought he was like messing with fire, throwing like hellfire or whatever. But there's that scene where he, the Warlock's, Redfield is smashing the Warlock's face into the consecrated ground, and the Warlock reaches up and like just dumps the hellfire straight into his mouth. And then he spends like 5 minutes vomiting it out.
Yep.
Right.
He's like, rah, because that's how fire works. Because
Right.
you just like it occupies.
So
you.
do you think maybe?
Rah.
Do you think maybe
That's
it's
magic fire.
Do you think maybe it's not fire?
Yeah, maybe it's like hell plasma or
Hell
something.
plasma.
Like just it's not actually hot.
Right.
You know, he was knocking stuff over with it because it's just like a non-Newtonian
Except
Right.
he was using it to cook the little kid fat.
Yes.
He was using it to
So-
go.
And then we would eat it.
That's why Redfield was so thin. It's fire that only burns fat.
That's what it is.
All right. So you have no fat in your throat.
The
so you're
Warlock
fine.
diet.
I like the Mennonite scene. I think that was pretty interesting.
really good.
Yeah.
And well
Where-
written.
He marked the barn, to kind of trap him in the barn. It was pretty interesting the way that played out. And I agree with, I think what you said with, you can see that generation passes the information on to the next generation, but they don't follow it as strictly as strict as, the older generation. But once he started to bring it up to his son was like, oh yeah, you're right.
You are bewitched. Who are you? The hex mark. Is it yours or is it not?
Hex mark? What? I haven't seen a hex mark in 30 years.
The mark is mine.
Amish?
Mennonite. And we are bewitched.
And then they were trying to protect that whole space.
Yeah, and then his son didn't want to believe it. He was like,
Right.
"What are you talking about, old man?"
But the old man just was like in 100%. No matter, they were chasing him.
He's like, "You're a
was
witch
in it.
hunter? Awesome, let's go
Right.
kill this witch."
Let's go kill it. Right. It was just, it was interesting to see that portrayal, of another person jumping into the mix of that. I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm going to go with the Mennonite scene as being my, that kind of click, that spark of that scene.
Because to be honest, his son's reaction of like, "Dad, what are you doing?" And he points out, he's like, the horse sweating in the morning, the cream rotting overnight.
A horse that sweats in the morning, cream that sours overnight. You know the signs. We both know.
and then lets him do what he needs to do. So that was kind of a neat scene. But I was going to say, my personal favorite, the scene that always stuck to me is right after that, when she's driving the nails into his footprints.
That was
and
so good.
And he just screams and puts and figures out, I'll just put a board on my foot and protect it, and protects his foot, and she finds the part of his head. And
Yeah,
hits
the
his
head print where he hit the sand.
Like, to me, I thought I was like, oh, that's one scene that has stuck with me since a kid. When I picked this movie, that's the first scene that comes in, is the nails in the bare footprints. I'm like, that's such a cool idea.
Right.
Like, I'm wondering if it's like, what's that?
How does that work?
Magic. It was a consecrated hammer.
It was the hammer was blessed or whatever, but someone said it right. But that's what I mean. Like, I've never heard of that before, so I don't know if it is anywhere else or if it was something made up by the writer, because it's just such a cool idea.
They needed some way to cripple him.
Yeah. So it's like an energetic he left energy behind as he made those prints. Yeah. Just tapping into it.
I mean, the nails for the feet. The slogan of the thing is Satan has one son as well, which is kind of a mirror of Jesus versus this warlock.
Yeah. They didn't play on that. Like, they
hammer
said
and nails carpentry.
Because it does say Jesus or Satan has one son, but he wasn't Satan's son.
Also has a son. Sorry.
Right, but who?
Because he always called Satan father, and
He called him father.
Yeah.
He called him by one of his names and then father.
Remember when he came through the lady?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's another thing. Like, when he went to the psychic lady to call on his father.
That was a really good scene.
It was a good scene. And also, I think the makeup was pretty cool. Like, I wasn't mad at that. I really enjoyed it because I still saw the lady in the mask, but the mask was completely, the teeth were a little, yeah, they were a little too,
it's always bulging out, so you could tell they're just a mouthpiece. Right. And it's just like, no. Like, dirty them up, sure. Do, like, whack one out, I don't care, but just the
all sharp.
Yeah, like, no. Any thoughts on
standout scene?
Yeah, something that catches you, or
no really scene in particular. Sans as this villain, any modern like supernatural movie would have snatched him up real quick. Yeah. He's the epitome of every vampire for the past 10 years. Right. But he had that stoic kind of presence to him, and the sinister value.
Her death will make all others seem like a pink tea party. And you who stand there cow-like on hallowed earth, shall hear every whimper, every cry, every gasping gush I can wring from her slow-dying body.
Didn't you also say that at first the two actors were switched?
I read somewhere originally they were going to be switched, and Julian Sands was going to be Redford's character.
Man, that would have made a terrible movie.
Well, who knows?
I don't think it would have been terrible, but it wouldn't, because, given it's a totally different villain, but the only other movie I remember him in is Hudson Hawk. He played a flamboyant, loud villain, but he still played a good villain.
What can I tell you? I'm the villain.
I think he could pull that off. I just don't know if Julian Sands...
And that's what I mean. Like, Julian Sands would have been like, I'm hunting a warlock.
I don't know, because then...
people would be like, are you a warlock?
Given he's much older, if you watch him in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, where he plays the younger version of that main character, he does a great job of being, a warm, caring character. So, I think they went the right way.
Yep.
But it would have been interesting to see if... Yeah, what would have happened? Yeah.
Well, because you could look at Sands and say, he resembles any one of the elven characters from Lord of the Rings in the current, so those are always the good characters. So there's
direct that over there because that's over my head.
Yeah, but it's just as
the blonde hair, the light skin, the blue eyes,
and his manner of speaking would go with it as well.
Yeah.
But if you think about all of them, all of those people also are famous for playing villains very well too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the villain's just so much more fun.
Good villains are just people too. Unlike the Warlock, Because he's just a bad guy who wants to end the world by speaking God's name backwards.
Right.
That's all he wants to do.
Seems reasonable to me.
Simple guy, straightforward plan. But that's all he's about. That's it. And
Wait,
like
so if we say
that was
dog
true of a lot of
3 times?
What if his name's Bob?
Well, uncreate? Is that what you're telling me?
Thanks. You fucked us.
We've all given ours. Standout scene. You didn't give one yet.
For me, the standout
It's a good
scene.
one. Yeah.
I like learning from a scene. And for me, the standout scene is the consecrated ground graveyard, where it's consecrated on one half of the graveyard, and they're moving graves to the other half because they're putting in a parking lot or something like that.
Condos. They're building condos.
They're building condos there, and so they're
Fucking
moving.
Boston,
and
man.
so
Always Boston.
you've got the consecrated ground where if the warlock touches it, it literally burns him, and like steam comes up out of the ground. And then you've got the unconsecrated ground or unhallowed ground,
Right.
where he's just fine to tread, and that's really good storytelling with a set piece.
What's the deal here?
And I love that because, again, Redfield shoves his face in the ground. He's like, "Ah!" And that's like what gives them the momentum to take the fight back because the warlock is. And so I don't
he
think
took
that
the fight
I don't
back
thi-
for like a second before he got the fire shoved.
the fire shoved in his mouth, right? But nevertheless, that was a turning point in the fight. But you'll also notice in that set, like in that thing that I think was a medieval reenactment village that they have been doing it all over Europe for damn near 100 years. None of the principal cast is in that at all.
I have to watch it again, but any of the guys who had any lines, were they in it?
I think
they
so.
were walking. And
But I don't know if you saw their faces while they were outside. We'd have to watch that again because it's not until they're inside that we get a real clear look at them, right? It's just pilgrims. Or not pilgrims, but rather the like pilgrimy leader guys.
Right.
And anytime you did see one of the leads, it was a very close-up shot.
Yeah.
But all we do say is that opening scene, the set design was very pretty.
That lady was creepy.
That lady was
I
creepy.
kind
as
of would
heck.
have liked to have seen her in the rest, like if she would
was
have pulled into the time.
I'll make sure to pop her face up on screen right now and
Yeah.
let it sit for a bit.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Slowly zoom into her face.
Quite some time spent on this. We can move forward. The question I always like ending with is 2, would you watch again and would you recommend it? So this time I'm going to start Richard.
Absolutely, I would watch this again, and absolutely, I would recommend it. But as like a quiche, it's that time of year Halloween film with a bunch of friends. Like watch this and The Craft, and other fun witchy stuff. With lots of alcohol.
Excellent answer. Move on.
Similar answer. I would probably watch it again. I probably would. I mean, it depends on who I was recommending it to, because it's not, like you said, it's very fitting for that Halloween time frame and just kind of like this background spooky vibe thing. But I don't know. It's not something that I'd be like, you have to watch this.
This is the kind of film that will play really well in the background at like Millennium Fandom Bar on Halloween.
Right. So my answer would be, I wouldn't necessarily watch it again, like to sit down and really watch it again. I think I would play it in the background while I was having a cool, funky party or something, and have it in, and then walk in and be like, oh, this is a fun scene. And then really just enjoy it. Because there's so many other movies that I would love to, like starting this and getting into this, there's so many other movies that I would love to really rewatch. That this wouldn't be on the top of the list. I'm glad we rewatched it and I loved it, but I don't know that I would sit down and watch it again. If they remade it with modern day technology and modern day effects, I think I'd be into absolutely seeing that. I think that would be a lot of fun to see. But yeah.
I think I'm gonna go surprisingly almost as opposite from you as possible. One, if they remade this without Julian Sands, I'd pick at the damn movie. Like, fuck you guys, because like I said, but that's because this is kind of it was an introductory movie for me.
Right.
So it has a little special, like more special meaning to me than it should, because I have a history with it. So by remaking it, I'm like, no, fuck off. But one thing I kind of want to do, and something we didn't discuss, because there's a lot going on while we're eating food, talking, and all that. But I kind of want to watch it again, like soon, and rewatch it, and see if there's anything below the surface. Because we've watched it, we've discussed it as a surface level movie, but we haven't gone to see, is there more to it? Because like you said, some of the stuff with the Mennonites, of how they knew some of the stuff by there, some of the lore they went through, some of the accuracies that were like not surface, like, there's some thought put into this. Maybe the movie has something below the surface that we didn't see. Or it could just be a direct, just like straightforward.
I feel like the script for this was probably way better than the movie. Like whoever wrote it understood witchcraft stuff, because hammering a nail into a witch's footprint is 100% a thing. Using a witch's blood on a compass is 100% a thing. Like this is all stuff I read about separate from this.
Because one, I mean, the movie isn't popular at all, but it has stood and made 3 sequels. Another time I'd watch it again is if we did a trilogy night and watched all 3 of them.
I would do that, because I would love to see number 2 and 3.
That could be a cool thing to do. But what I would recommend this movie as kind of an introduction, like for me, an introduction into some horror movies of that era, and then go from this into like the later Nightmare on Elm Street movies, because it's kind of along the same comedy mentality. But because like, let's be honest, the first Nightmare on Elm Street's a scary movie. That's going to be a lot for a lot of people.
And the rest of them are just fun romps. Fun romps through terror.
From 4 on. The first one and the third one were both scary. The second one was I guess you could call it a gay anthem. But you haven't seen the second one?
I have, but you're going to have to come a little bit more specific than that.
The second one's all about coming out as gay.
Okay.
That whole movie is about him struggling with being gay.
Something is trying to get inside my body.
Yeah, and she's female, and she's waiting for you in the cabana. And you want to sleep with me.
It's still a good one, but it's not a Freddy movie.
I want to see what else D.T. Twohy has written. T-W-O-H-Y.
Well,
Twohy.
Sounds like
Twoy?
a fake name.
Yeah, Twohy.
No idea.
See if he wrote a book or something, or if there was some kind of follow-up to this.
Yeah. So are we done with Warlock?
I think we could move on from Warlock.
Yeah.
Any last words for Warlock?
No, I feel pretty good about what we kind of conspired with this great.
Nosedive into occult stuff, but
this topic
that would
is clear.
Yeah, well, and that's what we would do if we continue talking about it. We would get more into the occult and all that other stuff, which I think.
Just have a great, fun conversation.
Yeah.
Great conversation.
Yeah. But we should get into the next.
After the cameras.
I am so sad that we have potentially lost this man, because I never knew his name, but he's been a villain in so many things that I've liked.
So many great movies.
Stop clapping.
I can't. I'm really excited about the next film we're going to talk about.
So the next film we're going to talk about, I picked this one because there was one line as a kid that made me laugh, and I would watch it on. I had a VCR, I'd watch it, hit rewind, hold the rewind button until it got there, let go, watch it again and again.
What line was it?
I'll show it right here.
What's your problem, Jackoff? You blind?
Yeah. What's your excuse?
Holy shit!
Man, that line was great.
You know which one it is.
I do. But I remember because you said it during the film, but I can't remember what it is right now.
They were in a car.
It's a good place to put it in.
Something about driving blind.
What are you, blind?
What are you blind?
Yeah,
what's your excuse?
So that is the line that stuck out to a 10-year-old that is fucking hilarious. To a 42-year-old, it's even funnier. So that was the memory I had. Rutger Hauer was an actor I really liked. He was in one of the greatest science fiction movies ever made. So, yeah. Since you were so excited.
Yeah! Blind Fury! Have you ever seen this movie, Blind Fury? Yes!
that you have Blind Fury, and you can tell us what happens in the movie.
Man, so Blind Fury is a film about two men who love each other without crossing that boundary.
You mean a man and a boy?
No, two men. They go to Vietnam together, and they get
that was gonna be
and
a
they're
little
fine,
weird there
and they're
for
gonna
a
come home, and everything's gonna be great, except they get attacked the night they're gonna leave. They're getting too old for this shit. It's one day before retirement. The bad stuff happens, and Rutger Hauer here, like Shemp, is charging towards the bad guys, but his buddy ducks out, kind of a coward, leaves him behind. Rutger Hauer goes blind, stays behind, learns how to become a blind swordsman, and then eventually makes his way back to the U.S. to find and reunite himself with his old friend, finds his family 5 minutes before bad people attack them, and takes them on this flip-flop roller coaster of emotion across the country until they get to Reno, Nevada, where he is just making chop suey of bad guys all along the way. It is wonderful. I didn't realize when I was a kid that it was so tongue-in-cheek. I also hadn't seen any of the Kurosawa films before them. So, one, I love this movie. I will watch this movie again and again. Two,
We're not there yet.
You answered the question too
Hold your horses.
Two,
Answer my
this
question.
is
so
direct ripoff of Zatoichi, which is like early 1980s, 1970s, late 1970s.
Well, what's say on the writer? Who's it say? Is there story? Like, they give any story credits to anyone? Or?
Directed, music, screen story, and screenplay by Charles Robert Carner.
Oh.
Charles Robert Carner, you should be ashamed of yourself.
I'd say that's pretty much the whitest name you could get. So,
Yeah,
I mean, usually the when you go by your first, middle, and last name, you're a serial killer or a murderer, assassinations. Like, so yeah, he.
Yeah, Rutger Hauer did a fantastic job acting blind. Oh my gosh, he does so well in everything he's ever in, especially when he gets direction and he's not just asked to be Rutger Hauer. You know, when a director uses him as an actor, he's phenomenal.
So excited. Every time I see Rutger Hauer, I just get so excited.
And he's holding up next to a sword, just like this, which is exactly what Zatoichi did. And there's all like the blundering blind comedy. Oh, exactly the same as Zatoichi.
You are just a million miles an hour. So let's pull back. So the opening the opening scene, the montage. So this movie starts out with not a full montage, so it's not like.
So you're right. There's the montage of him learning swordplay and learning how to adapt to being blind by listening, and he becomes more like a bat, basically. But they don't say bat, and he never says I'm Batman, though it would have been great if he did. And then he gets back to Florida. We made a lot of Florida Man jokes as he finds his best buddy's family.
And meth gator jokes.
Meth gator jokes.
Florida, that wouldn't be normal. Like maybe in
Have you seen
swamp.
Florida?
Have you been to Florida recently?
Yes.
That's normal in Florida.
He finds his buddy's family literally in their moment of jeopardy because his buddy has been cooking drugs against his will for an evil casino owner in Reno, Nevada. And the henchmen were coming after his family to get the son to motivate the guy to cook the drugs.
You're just the kind of chemist I need.
My last chemist had a little accident.
Yeah, the on-purpose guy. Created a little job opening.
I'm not gonna make that shit for you! I'm not gonna, goddammit!
And Rutger Hauer gets there just in time to chop one of their hands off, and it lands on the ground and pulls the trigger on the gun.
Okay.
Play by play.
No.
So I was going too fast before, and now I'm not going fast enough.
No. You skipped the comedy scene.
Which the comedy scene? They're all funny.
In the restaurant.
Oh, the boom, boom, pow, pow, pow. Yeah.
I'm sorry, the what now?
There's a scene.
I'm thinking the hot sauce on the taco scene.
First of all,
you're talking. Yeah, because
you don't just let anyone touch your taco, okay?
You don't.
It's just in poor taste.
You're right. I mean,
I've never thought much about people touching my taco. I'm usually just grateful to have a taco.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
Moving forward, You're right. I did blur over that scene. That scene, as much fun as it was very forgettable to me because it was one for one from an older movie.
Well, yeah,
But
I mean,
nevertheless, it was hilarious.
It's a physical comedy bit, but it was to set that up that he is control of his environment, but pretending not to.
But pretending
and
not
it
to
plays
be.
a lot into the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and it's your obligatory. These guys are just bullies, and they are worthless humans, and so we can beat them up,
That
and
is
you
a
can feel good about it as an audience member.
Terrible thing to say about people of a different race.
It's not because they're a different race; it's because they're bullies.
No, that's why they were cast though, because it was the '80s.
Oh, that's true. I wasn't seeing that because I'm colorblind.
Oh.
It's a blind joke. No, too soon.
No. Colorblind. I get the colorblind.
The blind part was good,
Yeah.
but colorblind is very bad.
Yes, that was a setup, and
I was going for some Michael Scott cringe level there.
Yeah.
I hope I achieved it.
That
was good. That was good.
Excellent.
Sorry, I just had to make you feel racist for.
Yeah, so he
because
gets
that scene kind of. I mean.
Just had to make
What?
Somebody has to take the fall.
Yeah. I mean, you told me you hated Jews 5 minutes ago, so I
never said that. Never said that.
And we did not see that coming.
But
He tied his shirt up. There's a little knot.
He should not have done that.
So naughty.
It's not a good look.
Now we have 2 puns.
Oh no.
And when he gets there, very shortly after he gets there, some very fishy police officers break in without a warrant and ask to find this kid and are shoving their way around. They're not.
Okay, can I stop?
Yeah.
We've already done this. Because you already talked about his arm cutting off, his hand cutting off, and shooting the gun. So.
Which, by the way, is not the way that the grip would work. If you were to cut off a hand, I can only guarantee it's gripping is the last thing
Yeah,
to
it's not,
be
it's not
worried
gonna work. All
about.
those
It would be
muscles-
falling open.
All those muscles are up here.
Maybe it's like one of the guns that when it hits the ground, it just goes off. So maybe it wasn't the hand squeezing, it just hit the ground.
It's just a bad revolver.
I was like, what kind of a police officer is just running around with a defective gun?
That
The
kind of
same
police
police
officer.
officer that's running around with a mobster.
Willing to kill a kid.
You know, maybe that's why he took that dirty
That's-
mob
well,
money. He needed to buy a new gun.
Dirty cops and all. I mean, they kind of already are doing that.
I mean, it was Florida. I mean, they probably sold their good guns for meth and just bought shitty guns to.
You're like, look, I got the new fancy dropped revolver. Pew!
Yeah.
It's the only accuracy they have in the whole movie.
All right, one quick question: what's the connection between the two movies? The son that he goes with, connection to Warlock, is Brandon Call.
Brandon Call.
He is the one that needs to be saved in that one, and the one that needs to be killed and boiled and eaten.
In Warlock,
Needed
those
to be.
were,
He
which
probably
was
needed
really
saved there. He
rough.
just had nobody to save him.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Drank, boiled and drank.
no, he was eating.
Oh, the second time he
Very
was. Yeah, the first time he was
concerned
chugging.
by
Oh,
the
yeah.
usage of the fat in Warlock. Going
Okay.
back to that movie, because most times it's like blood or something,
Yeah.
not fat.
The fat of a child. We don't need to go back to Warlock. So now we're past the scene where they kill the child's mom.
Yeah, they blast her with a shotgun, and she takes like 5 minutes to die.
Yeah.
And she does it very, very quietly. And the cop who had his arm cut off, he also got his arm cut off very, very quietly. Nobody's screaming in this movie. Whenever they get big sword gashes, they just go and fall over.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing was like, if you get your hand cut off, you're not just gonna be like, oh, quiet. Like, I think he should have been in the background screaming, and they could have easily added that in the background. Oh yeah, not that hand.
That's my right hand. I needed that hand. But after that scene, he takes the kid, against the kid's will, jet setting across the country where they have this very Uncle Buck kind of...
The exact opposite of jet setting, because they took a bus.
They took a bus, right.
Oh, look at that. That's a great overlay of rain.
Man, they stopped at a truck stop and slipped in the mud.
They fall in the mud. They threw a rock at him.
Rutger Hauer spit a rock at the kid's head.
The children of the corn.
Yeah, got attacked by a bunch of hillbillies.
In the corn, which is hilarious because they were like in like central United States, and it was hillbillies.
Which, I mean, if
yeah, they
you go
live
to
in the
anywhere
cornfields.
rural.
Yeah, but it was flat cornfields. It wasn't hills. You need hills to have billies.
What are they, flatbillies then?
Yeah.
The cornbillies.
Flat earthers.
Cornbillies. They'd be corn bobs.
Corn bob instead of corn
We
cobs.
just summoned God.
I like that. That was a good one.
Because what's the opposite of a billy but a bob, right?
A corn bob.
It's a corn bob.
All right. Corn bob it is.
All right, so they ran into the corn bobs, and one of them, who is Randall Tex Cobb, corn cob. Hey.
Hey.
We've come full circle.
Yeah, exactly. He hung out on top of a shed and shooting a shotgun.
After he threw the kid onto a suspiciously placed mattress in a shed that's in the middle of a cornfield.
And again, that's for shacking. That's for shacking.
Thank God there was an earthquake-proof table next to this rape mattress.
Rape mattress.
That's why they call it shacking up.
Love shack.
Love shack.
And then he hung out on top of the love shack, but they chopped that shit down and
I mean,
fell.
that's a pretty shady built shed. If
Why-
one piece of wood takes
Why
the whole
was
damn
it
thing down.
supported by one 2x4 hanging out in the back corner?
I imagine it wasn't always that way. They probably just put that 2x4 there, you know, once it got good and rickety.
My other question on top, to add to your question, how would a blind man know that one board is holding the whole thing up?
It's like a coaster under a table leg. You just know.
Didn't you watch his training montage? Insert training montage.
Oh my. All the answers are there.
I mean, I knew he could cut a melon, but
In
to know
perfect fours.
but to know structural build quality from being hidden in a cornfield and just knowing, like, does he hear that one board?
Yeah,
Is it
because
talking to him like,
Echolocation.
he's
cut me,
blind
cut
as a
me.
bat.
Yes. Vision impaired.
You know
He
what?
used echolocation to know that that
He's like,
board-
okay, that's wood. It sounds porous.
You're like, ooh.
Yeah, this is rotted.
Mm-hmm. And there's this weird, just
You know what? I think
tangential.
that echolocation would probably be hurt by the shotgun going off over and over. I don't know.
But if he's blind as a bat, then he's not actually blind. He just can't see far away well, right?
Not to mention, blind as a bat.
No, what's
in one of the taglines? It was
what's the
blind
main tagline? Let's bring up the main tagline because everyone seemed to love that one.
He may be blind, but he don't need no dog.
But he don't need no dog.
It's also a double negative. He definitely needs a dog.
Now, wrong movie.
Oh yeah.
God, you really want to go back to that one again.
Warlock. He may be blind, but he don't need no dog.
We don't need no dog.
Bear in mind, there was never any dog.
There's never a dog.
Yeah, but that's
He's
why
gone.
it's a double negative. He needed a dog.
He should have had a dog.
Don't need no dog. No, he needed one. The whole movie needed a
Maybe
dog.
the kid is his dog.
And so
I mean, he got a
That would explain why he was so close to his face all the time.
I need you.
A unfired clay triceratops that somehow maintained its shape through the entire movie.
Yeah, kid threw that thing out the window and he catches it, and it's clay. The kid had just carved his name into it with a dull tool and threw it out the window. Same shape. He puts it in his pocket, pulls it out, same shape.
Maybe he had the same power as the warlock and he fired it.
After getting consumed, he was reborn with the power of fire.
There you go.
The same thing that blinded him. I guess.
No, the kid. Because the kid, he actually didn't eat all his fat. He just carved some of it out, so the kid was still alive. But he gained powers out of it. Okay, no more warlock.
We say for the third time.
It was like a magic trick. When he sneezed, it just
Yeah.
solidified.
Water-fired clay.
Pocket fired. His pocket is fired.
This triceratopic has run its course.
Oh, that's not good.
No, I think there's one more in there somewhere. One more.
It's become a triceratops.
Done. See, I told you there was another one. God, I knew it.
They always come in threes, so I would say
Try.
to expect one more.
Triceratops in threes. It's a good one. I like it.
They eventually get to Reno, and eventually, as happens in every film, he keeps the kid with him. He gets to the guy. When he gets to the guy and rescues the guy, they capture the kid. Now him and the guy have to go after the kid, and they get taken up into the mountains, and that's where the climax happens. There's a lot of great scenes along the way. I just didn't want to get lost in the mud during a quick synopsis.
Now, was there a guy or a dude?
What about a man?
I mean, it was his guy, dude, man, his best buddy from.
I'm not your buddy, guy.
From Nam. I'm not your guy friend.
Oh no.
Dude, don't call me dude.
I'm not your friend, pal.
Not your pal, guy.
I'm not your guy, buddy.
The snoring puppy.
There is a snoring
Is there
puppy.
a snoring puppy or a snoring person?
That's a snoring Antonio.
That is, yep. I was about to say that.
What happens at the end? So he meets up with the drug dealer.
He cuts his way through every single. Well, first they think they got the jump on him because they're going up in one of those rope trolleys, right? And all the guys are standing there. All the henchmen left over are standing there with a bunch of guns and like bam, 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 blah, 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 blah. They lay waste to this thing. It's like a
Can we
minute
point out
and
the
a half of
coolest
shooting.
henchman? Coolest henchman?
The
Pull
mullet.
out the coolest henchman.
The mullet.
The mullet.
The mullet with the pink
tie.
tie and suspenders that they actually showed when his jacket ripped. Like that's like we said, that's
Good
attention to detail.
That was back in the casino though. He didn't make it up to the mountain.
That's a
No, he was
henchman
on the
to
mountain.
detail.
Oh, was he on the mountain?
Yeah, because I said that's I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna be that guy for Halloween.
Okay.
Shooting a gun.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Gotta go the mullet.
That's a
Oh,
henchman to detail.
Because it rhymes with attention.
I liked it so much I had to say it twice just so that I could get that face.
This is a really good fun. They escape through the bottom of the trolley, and the guys are like, "Ah, dang it!" Then he cuts them to ribbons. But he gets through about half of them, and then his friend wusses out, just like he did in Vietnam, and he starts having flashbacks. Oh no, as his buddy runs down the hallway, and then he loses his hearing superpowers and stumbles onto a stage where they put spotlights on him, and instead of shooting him right then, they put on...
Sorry, I cut you off again, but you said he loses his hearing. So first his friend ditches him and he loses his vision, and then his friend leaves him and he loses his hearing?
That's right! That's like he loses his hearing, or at least his hearing as far as his ability to kind of predict people's movements and where they're going to be and everything. Like, he doesn't seem to be able to do his cool guy powers
He's
anymore.
flustered. He's flustered, so he's tripping over everything, over himself, knocking the music down, breathing into the microphone, drawing attention to himself. Just like a large plane flying overhead that just is noisy as shit, which is like plane number 6 in the past 20 minutes. Oh, sorry, that wasn't part of the movie.
He's a sad boy. He's a sad boy, and there's a plane in the other room.
Yes. I don't know if it's a plane. That's a
helicopter.
Struggling motorcycle.
Yes.
Struggling with a saw that gets stuck every once in a while.
Sorry.
But then his buddy returns with fireworks, and everything's okay.
Here, you sons of bitches!
They cut through the rest of those henchmen, and eventually he has to fight an honest-to-God samurai, or maybe ninja. And it's a great sword fight with a renowned martial artist whose name escapes me, but I recognize his face every time I see him. The guy's
Pops up right here. His name's right here.
Yeah, right there. As you can see,
this guy.
He's a very cool dude.
Yeah. And here's a list of some of the movies he was in.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So thorough.
But it's a very good sword fight, and I think they did a very cool... They took the climax of that fight in a cool direction, because instead of killing him with a sword, he kills him by, like, the guy's swinging on a rope thing over a jacuzzi that has something electric that's fallen into it, and he cuts the rope so the guy falls into the electric jacuzzi, so, which is saying he couldn't...
See, he hates Jews.
Wow! Rolling through that.
It's the blue eyes.
He couldn't beat the swordsman, so he had to find another way, because in a straight sword fight, he wasn't going to win. And I thought that was kind of awesome, because the hero doesn't always need to be the best guy in the world at the thing he do.
Yeah, and it would be a little bit odd to me that he lose to a
Blind guy.
traditionally trained actual samurai.
Yeah, right. A guy who's been doing it his entire life as opposed to just the last couple years.
Random guy who loses his sight in war and gets taught by villagers how to sword fight, and then all of a sudden he's against someone who is.
Well, did you see how long that beard and hair was? He trained for a long time.
Oh yeah, they made it very evident that
was an
time was
impressive
passing.
montage.
Very impressive.
This film did such a good job of using set pieces and visual cues to tell the story in so many places.
One weird one though. During the fight, he touches his face. Oh, Japanese.
Japanese, huh?
Yeah, I was like, what is that?
Very, like, in some senses, it was progressive. My voice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm trying to hold back.
I'm drinking so much water for the same reason. Yeah.
In some of the lines, it was very progressive. But then you had kind of the whitewashing of like even the montage.
Weird.
It was a
like,
weird take.
Weird moments.
And as much as this movie was great, and Rutger Hauer was an amazing actor, there was just some awesome, creepy, like I want to get real close to you and mimic some of those moments, but I feel creepy even thinking about trying to get that close to you to just be like, yep, I just met you and so you're Japanese, huh? Like,
and even just like between him and the kid and like everyone, it was.
Yeah, there were some weird moments. Like I said, it looked like the director's like, I don't have enough wide enough lens, so you guys have to get really close so I can fit you both in the shot. But like,
and that really did make some of the framing very awkward in certain scenes because all you saw was a face and grunting and bending around, and you're like.
How's it going?
Well, and
what is happening in the rest of the scene? Can I please get more context?
In the back of the van, specifically.
In the back of the
and the kid,
van,
like,
white van,
he's
no
like
windows.
This. Rutger Hauer is leaned forward. He's got his bonds behind his back. He's got a vest, and the vest is like kind of blocking
The
his
kid's
whole
on his back with
crotchal
his-
area, and the kid just like reaches towards the crotchal area to help Rutger Hauer. What am I looking at right now?
Yeah, and we're just going to mention the laying on his back with his knees behind his head. I was like, excuse me, that is not the way to get ropes off. It's not.
And that's right before they was tickling him. When he's trying to get his lighter and he's tickling him.
No.
Like, ha ha ha, we just tickle each other. Like the visuals in that scene were weird. However, because what they were doing in the scene, it made perfect sense. The shots were just weird.
But I think that also might have been intentional because that was the comical scene. It was supposed to be fun. It was supposed to be awkward. Like having his legs over his head, like, oh no! Like it was supposed to be the physical comedy.
Since then, we became aware of the sexual assault that is happening to children all over the place in the United States, and it's entirely too rampant. And so that scene didn't age well.
No, adults should not be playing Twister with young children in the back of a van. No, thank you.
I don't know where to go from there.
Be very, very quiet.
I'm hunting Rutger.
Only way we can go.
Okay, a cool
Forward.
scene. One cool scene that I like. Even though it was predictable when they go to get his son who's living with the bus with that woman, and
hiding in the bus with.
Yeah, hiding in the bus. And she was doing yoga, and he walk in, and she doesn't move, so you know she's dead. But I thought it was really cool when they revealed that she's dead. You see the burn hole and him pick up the cigar that Cobb had in his mouth the whole movie. It was like, again, like the visual cues. Like that was a neat visual cue. Like, like he left that as a marker to let him know, like, you know who has the kid. Like stuff like that is like a good visual storytelling. He didn't leave a note that you pick up and read, or he's like, you know who did this. We got to go. Like it was clear.
He's just a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal actor.
So we can move on to the one. Are there any standout scenes? Like any scenes? Start with Callie. Like, what is a standout scene in that movie that you're like, oh, that was kind of fun?
I needed time to think about this. I don't know. There wasn't any that like really super stood out to me.
Not even my joke.
Not really, especially because you were sitting there mumbling about it.
Well, it's because someone started talking. I was like, shut up, this is a good joke, shut up.
I don't know. There was nothing like overly like moving or powerful in it for me.
There were a lot of great gems in this, like the scene where the one
All right,
guy.
pick your one favorite.
Right.
Okay.
The one where it's like 3 seconds. It's not a whole scene. It's just where the one henchman shoots the other henchman like right in the shoulder, just above his heart, because Zatoichi, Blind Fury is using him as a human shield, and he shoots him right in the heart. And then instead of fighting Rutger Hauer, he shoots that guy in the head, and they both die. That was great. Those two characters and everything they did in the film. They were just these great, dumb, clumsy, totally bad guys and dangerous henchmen. But yeah.
Yeah, they did have a load of henchmen, but 2 main henchmen that they kind of gave personalities to, which was kind of neat.
Yeah.
What about you? Any standout scenes?
Well, I would definitely say that I had 2 scenes.
Sorry.
One of them, it was more of like I wouldn't necessarily say a plot hole, but during the scene where her glasses get stepped on so she can, for whatever reason, no longer legally operate a vehicle, and they decide, yeah, let's put a blind man behind the wheel, and for whatever reason, the kid can narrate how to drive for a blind man, but the kid could not have narrated for the woman who was still, for the most part, relatively sighted. And so I'm like, why did that make more sense to the writers?
Because we all know women are terrible drivers.
I will smack you, and I'll miss because I'm a bad shot. But it just, like, that to me, I mean, I ended up finding the scene very funny because watching a blind man drive around and just maniacally laugh and snicker as the cars just, like, aimlessly careen in every direction. Did we ever get a sequel?
No.
Well, that's disappointing.
If you did get a sequel, it should be called like Blind Furies.
It should be Blind Fury Revenge.
And the first one's Blind Fury, and the second one is Blind Furious.
Blind
Wrath. And then the blind
That's
and then the blind and the furious, and it keeps going.
2 blind, 2
No,
furious.
did you hear what she said?
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 blind, 2 furious.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
That's amazing. But she actually, great 90s name, Blind Wrath would be a fantastic sequel to Blind Fury. Like that's
Blind Rage, number 3.
Blind Rage. Oh my gosh. Blind Justice.
But it's got to be a tagline, Blind Rage.
Except when he got to Blind Justice.
He do need that dog.
In this era, though, this cover is very similar to Crocodile Dundee.
He does look, yep. That's what that's what it reminds me of. I was trying to figure that out.
See, that's the weird thing. And I remember watching this on VHS, and I don't remember that cover. So I'm wondering if that is newer.
Maybe.
Because I don't. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't remember that cover. When I bought the Blu-ray, I was just like, yeah, this like I wouldn't buy this if I saw this cover. I just don't like, because like you
said, it's got Rutger Hauer's face.
Right. I mean, yeah. I'd watch it, but I wouldn't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like one of those comedies that I just cannot stand. And so it took itself a little more seriously than I expected it to. And I mean, obviously it's still a comedy, but slightly more serious. And yeah, so I did like it a little bit better. I did not, however, see any point to any of it. There was
that is kind of true.
There's no story arc for him. Like
save a random guy from a meth lab.
Yeah.
He didn't grow from it.
It's like, here's your kid back. Glad that I could be your blind babysitter
and now
for the day.
I'm going to very dramatically go on my way when it's clear that is worse for me than hanging out with my buddy and his kid.
And he like fell in love with his child, like parentally, and so quickly. And I think that part took itself too seriously.
Go back to your dad. Now, come on.
Let me just walk down the street forever while the credits roll. It's like a 7-minute segment, but I'm gonna keep going.
And none
I'm
of
gonna
that
keep walking.
was
That's the
earned.
direction my director gave.
You're right. There none of the. That's a great. Say that again. That was just great.
None of the emotion was earned.
Yes, that's a weak spot of the movie. It's you're 100% correct.
Which is my biggest problem with 90% of stories.
Well, especially in this era. I mean, this era, like we've discussed, easy bad guy, good guy. Like there's emotion. Yeah, it's just straightforward. So earning anything is almost impossible. So you're right. Yeah.
I think Blind Fury was a fun watch. It was enjoyable, but Warlock definitely had more substance to it.
Much more substance. Blind Fury does have more rewatch power or rewatch potential for me, but that's just because I love to watch Rutger Hauer.
And I'm not by any means saying it's a bad movie. Like I still like the movie, but most of my enjoyment came from nostalgia. And then the final question is for the episode of Be Kind ReMake. Is there anything that stand out that we should remake? A scene from either movie.
I think that it would be really cool to remake that in the warehouse with all the crazy lights scene and him climbing through the drum set and the microphone disorienting him, because of course you're just going to climb through a random stage while you're trying to escape the mafia. That's what you do.
And being blind.
And as soon as those lights went out and his friend had like the explosive devices that originally hindered and crippled him, but now are basically his saving grace. That was a cool little turnaround. I like when your kryptonite becomes your superpower, your weapon of choice. And I think that would be really cool to do. Maybe even not identical, like maybe let's refilm the whole thing exactly the way it was. But like you could take a lot of the context of it, a lot of the themes of it, and you could even change almost everything about the scene, maybe even like make it futuristic, or you could even make it like, it doesn't matter how you do it, like it would be so easy to just redo that type of structure and just play with all the media you can, with the lighting, with the special effects, the flash, the camera. Like it's just a very dynamic scene and I like it.
Oh, I mean, I'll just jump in because that was the scene I was going to pick.
Mix the scene that I wanted to pick in with the same one. I think it would blend well.
Let's see.
Let's see.
I wanted to redo my standout scene pick, which was the guy getting shot in the shoulder and shooting his buddy in the head while being used as a body shield. I feel like it fits right in.
That would be a really fun scene to do, and it's got a lot of different action points. Alternatively, if we were to do a scene from like Warlock or something, I think it would be fun too to see kind of that modernized twist on current horror, where it's more like psychological warfare with the more suspense. Build up that suspense and live in it for a little bit. Could be fun, but I mean, the scenes you guys were saying would be so much fun to recreate.
Could we during the credits just have one of us like on all fours vomiting out bad fire?
I think we can call it a night. Like we've been going all night, and my allergies are killing me, and I'm dead tired. And
go team, go!
Go team, go! This was a good success. I appreciate. Thank you all for joining. And I think we're done for the night.
That guy looks like he's peeing.
He doesn't look European.